What's up, everybody? I'm Nathan Donnelly, and welcome to Stroke of Genius, presented by Afterthought Sports, and I'm going to be on WSBU 88.3, The Buzz. Welcome. Thank you for joining me, and today I'm going to talk about the big event this weekend, which is the Ryder Cup. It's Europe against America, it's pride against pride, it's nationality, it's arguably the most passionate event in golf. Comparing it to the Olympics, which this past Olympics was awesome. If the Ryder Cup is anything like it, I'm excited. So let's get into it. Nathan Donnelly again. This is Stroke of Genius. This is going to be my golf show. I know it's not the best time to start it. I'm going to cover more like TGL and off-season stuff in the winter, but next summer when the golf season really picks up, I'll be really excited to get into it with you guys. So, yeah, let's talk about it. We got Bethpage Black. It's America's hardest public course. It is host of the 2025 Ryder Cup, the American team against the Europeans. And what I want to get into about Bethpage specifically is, some of you up there might have played it. It's not hard to get it. Well, it is kind of hard, but for a public course it is. But for a course of its magnitude, it's not hard to get into. You gotta camp out in the parking lot and stuff like that. But for Bethpage specifically, this is the first time that it's ever held a match play event, and especially a match play event to this degree, this magnitude of the Ryder Cup, which is arguably the biggest match play event in the world. And what I want to look for when these guys play Bethpage under pressure is they're going to hit shots that you've kind of never seen at Bethpage because they can afford to. Where a normal tournament at Bethpage is a stroke play tournament. If you lose a hole by 5 shots, you're down 5 shots. But in a match play tournament, if you lose a hole by 5 shots, you're only down 1. So these guys are going to be taking aggressive lines. They're going to plan and execute to play a course that kind of we've never seen the way it's been played this way. And there's just going to be insanely rowdy, just absurd New York fans who I know we all know how they can be, and I'm really excited to see how they react to this big of a golf tournament. So there's going to be more about Bethpage later. We'll get into course layout and the discussion of how these guys are going to play it, but I kind of want to talk about what I'm going to go over in the next minutes here, and hopefully you stay until the end. I got a good lineup of segments, so I'll have them grouped out in the time bar in the length of the video, so you can skip to your favorite segment if you want. I got momentum meter, which guys are trending up, down. I got finding the line. That's when I'm going to talk about some specific stuff I like and don't like about Bethpage and how it fits to these teams. Match play moments beyond the card. We're going to talk about some stats with each of these teams and kind of gather what I like on that front, and ultimately making my prediction on who will win the Ryder Cup and why. We got stroke of the week, and then we got a little wrap up next on the tee. So let's do it. So first, a momentum meter. I want to talk about one guy going up for the U.S., one guy going down for the U.S., and also the same for the Europeans. And first guy I want to talk about is Russell Henley. For the Americans, he's had countless top 20 finishes this year. He's been one of the most consistent guys on the PGA Tour. He came in solo second at the Tour Championship. He was so consistent that he was an automatic qualifier for Keegan. Keegan did not have to pick him. Keegan Bradley, the USA captain, did not have to pick him. He would have picked him if he was able to, but he qualified automatically. I mean, Russell's been top 10 in the world golf rankings all season, and he's a consistent figure for the U.S. team at a place like Bethpage, when I don't want to say the U.S. isn't very consistent, but to me they're more of the hit or miss team at least, and I'll get into that later and beyond the card and stuff like that. But Russell doesn't drive it the furthest, but he's one of the most accurate on the team. He's one of the most consistent. And a guy trending up for the EU would be Matt Fitzpatrick. He has won a lot in the past. I believe he's got 2 majors. I think he won a British Open. Don't quote me on that. But this year he came in T4 at the Open. He's got 3 straight in the past 3 weekends. He's got 3 straight top 6s on the DP World Tour. He's been consistent there, and I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be able to take some of this consistency and use it at Bethpage. Trending down for me for the U.S. would be Xander Schauffele. And this is kind of more of a feel pick to me. I realize in the past couple of tournaments, in the couple of tournaments ending the season, he made the BMW. He didn't make the Tour Championship, which is why I partially why I have him trending down. But he never really looked right to me, like the Xander we knew from 2022 or 2023. He just never looked really consistent. He never got that consistent swing for me that I was looking for him to get. And along with finishing or not making the Tour Championship, he didn't win a start on tour. And I will say, although he came T7 at the Open, he was never really in contention. That was Scotty's tournament to lose. So that's someone that if he sits once or twice, he probably won't. He's too important to sit. But if he sits once or twice, I wouldn't hate that. Also trending down for me in the EU, maybe a bad pick, but Justin Rose. He hasn't had a top 20 in the last 3 starts since he won at St. Jude. And looking at his finishes this year, it's either top 5 or he gets cut. So with a guy like that, where he's kind of all or nothing, you kind of want a veteran like him who's been in Ryder Cups and who's been in big situations, especially this year, to be more of a consistent figure. And I don't know if he will be that for them. And I talked about it before. We're gonna wrap up Momentum Meter with this. Who is not really at their form, but is just too important to sit? I said Xander. If I had to pick somebody else, I realized that JT has had an okay year, but he got T7 at the Tour Championship, but he recently, especially at the Pro Tour, he finished 69th, and he's had inconsistent finishes kind of all year leading up to this. But the Ryder Cup experience and the knowledge on how to control his head when there's a rowdy crowd, albeit it's the USA crowd this year, but somebody like that, he'd be too valuable to sit on Friday and Saturday. So he would be the perfect pairing for a guy like a rookie like Spawn or Ben Griffin or somebody like that. So that's pretty much all I've got for guys trending up and down. I want to talk about Bethpage Black more. Let's do Finding the Line. So there's a couple of things I want to get into specifically about Bethpage Black here, and this is the perfect time to do it. It's Finding the Line. Course preview of Bethpage Black. And there's a couple key course features here that I'll point out, and then I'll say who they favor. There's a lot of long, lengthy par fours. You're going to need some big hitters. You're going to need some guys who can just shorten the golf course significantly. I think that plays more in a team's favor rather than kind of fairway accuracy. Maybe if you find yourself in the rough once or twice, I feel like that plays better or that plays worse than shortening the golf course. I mean, if you have to hit it less yards, you're more likely you're less likely to make a mistake. So there's those long lengthy par fours. They do have just absurdly thick rough running along each side, but a lot of these par fours are over 475 yards, which is 310, 320 yard drive. You're still going to have a mid to long iron in, which is absurd, but we're going to have to see some of that long iron consistency out of guys like Scotty and Xander and Bryson and guys like that if the U.S. wants a chance to win. So who do these long, lengthy par fours favor? I think they favor the U.S. U.S. has more long hitters, guys I just said, Xander, Scotty, Bryson. JT really hasn't lost any distance, Justin Thomas. And specifically about, let's say, for example, Bryson. Specifically about Bryson, I'm excited to see how hard he cuts these corners on the dogleg par fours and fives, and how hard he might if he might try and lay up on them. Which I know he's not going to lay up, but if you try and cut these corners and you don't succeed, it could be very detrimental. Albeit not as detrimental if this was normal stroke play. You're only losing one hole, but it could come in very crucial if you are 3 up with 5 to go and you completely just shank one into the woods like that. That could be a turning point in a match against Rory on Sunday, right? So I personally am excited to see that if that something like that, like his aggressiveness comes back to bite him. Like I said before, I think this U.S. team is hit or miss, and there's a couple other reasons other than the big hitters that they have who could spray it all over the golf course. But Europe does have some counter strengths, and it's some that I mentioned before. Their fairway consistency is impeccable. Like, other than Rory, who is I would slot in the big hitters category along with Xander, Scotty, Bryson on the U.S. team. Rory is not that accurate, but in terms of fairway accuracy on the European team, I'm looking at guys like Ludwig Oberg, who can put it in the fairway when he wants. Guys like, especially Sepp Straka, who had one of the best fairway percentages on tour and on the DP World Tour. So I do think the Europeans have a play here. They definitely have their own advantage, but I wouldn't say that it's larger than the U.S.'s. I think the U.S. can shorten the golf course significantly and take away any mistakes. They could bomb it over fairway bunker, but it's just about whether that will succeed, or if they're going to shoot themselves in their foot. And then there's always the crowd factor at Bethpage. New York golf is just insane. I take these accuracy numbers for the Europeans with a grain of salt, because I know that a lot of these guys are experienced, but if I put any of them against a New York crowd yelling just obscene things, I can't take any of their swings. Like I don't know if they'll positively hit the fairway. Like Sepp Straka, fairway percentage is not going to be the same. So I don't really know how much of an advantage that gives the Europeans, but for America there is a clear-cut edge here. Like I said, they can shorten the golf course significantly. So, and don't put it past the U.S. either. I have not even began to talk about putting. I think the U.S. has the putting edge too. The U.S. has one of the best putters in the world in Sam Burns. So if you take, let's say, Sam Burns and one of the longest hitters, I don't think this will happen, unfortunately. I think the long hitters already have pairs, in my mind at least. But hypothetically, if you took Sam Burns and put him with Scotty Scheffler, Texas boys, or Bryson DeChambeau, who could drive the green on a par four, and then Sam Burns could put it in for eagle and alternate shot. Like that, something like that is just, I mean, it's completely demoralizing to the Europeans, especially when they're on American soil, right? So, but that's pretty much all I've got for Bethpage. I mean, I'm just excited to see the conditions of this course, how Keegan and Luke Donald wanted to play, and how these guys react to something like this. I saw a video yesterday. I'll try and put it up on the screen if I remember, but it was Bryson, who was, I mean, it was like on his like fifth or sixth tee shot. He was practicing absolutely just cutting the crap out of a corner and trying to bomb the green on a par four in one. And if he pulls off something like that, like he did in 2023 on Marco Simone first hole, it's just an absolutely tectonic momentum swing for the Americans. So that's pretty much all I've got on Bethpage and finding the line. So let's do a little matchup talk. Let's go to match play moments. Okay, let's do a little pairing talk. I kind of have some ideas about how the U.S. and the Europeans, Keegan and Luke Donald, will have their pairs. First, we got Scheffler and Henley, and before I get any further, you can kind of see who will be paired with who based on how the captain set up their practice times and like practice groups and stuff like that. So I'm using that. I'm using kind of if these guys have been pairs in the past. I'm using personalities. I'm doing all of this. So I'm trying to take it all into account. So yeah, first I've got Scheffler and Henley, and then I thought about who would go with JJ Spawn. If JJ Spawn, and I took Bryson because this is more of a personality pairing for me. Spawn and Bryson are kind of on polar opposite sides. Spawn won the U.S. Open this year, hit that really long putt, phenomenal putt, when he actually didn't need to. But Bryson is going to command the attention of the crowd. We know this. This is his MO. He does it all the time. I said in the last segment that he was preparing to drive the green, just absolutely cut the corner on a par four. Like, if he does anything like that, like it can kind of let JJ, I don't want to say be in the background because he's still obviously playing and is still paired with Bryson, but it'll kind of let JJ take a breath and work on his own thing. I think it'll help him to stay within himself and not try and do too much, because Bryson's taking a lot of the attention and he's taken a lot of the chutzpah from the crowd. So I have those two guys going together, whether that's 4-ball foursome, one after the other on Sunday maybe, I don't know. But and then next got Burns and Cantlay, and the reason I have this is because kind of same thing with Bryson and JJ. I think Burns can be the one that kind of sits back. He's not as energetic, and Cantlay's been here before. He's done this. He was great at Marco Simone, and he is kind of more in the Bryson role. Additionally, other than the comparison, Burns and Cantlay went 2-0 at the President's Cup this past year. So I did look into that, and I thought that Keegan would want to pair them again. It went well at the President's. So a couple U.S. Question mark pairings. I'm not really sure where they fit. I kind of want to see where they have JT going. If JT goes with a guy like Ben Griffin, maybe. just like DeChambeau and the guys I mentioned before, Griffin would kind of be able to stay on his own, especially with this being his first time, and JT would kind of lead, and JT has an experience to lead Griffin through one of the matches. I think that would be good for Griffin, and I'm sure Keegan knows all of this. Like, Keegan's taking everything into account. He's going to get the best pairings possible. He wants not only to win and to have statistically the guys best together, who fit together, whose games mold together, but he wants guys to feel comfortable. Like, if Ben Griffin and JJ Spawn's games went together the best out of any two people, he wouldn't put them together because they're both first timers. You don't want to put them out there and just have them wither in front of the crowd if something doesn't go right. They would get rattled so easily. So he wants to take everything into account. Additionally, I'm thinking Colin Morikawa and Harris English. Keegan put Colin and Harris together at the Pro Core this past weekend. He paired them together, so that might have tried to get something going. They're both, I don't want to say even keeled, but I think their games would go together. And Harris is very consistent player. He's a lot like Russell Henley. He was consistently at the top of leaderboards this tour season, and Colin, I don't care about what you say, is still one of the best iron strikers in the world. He's still one of the best, like, pure ball strikers. So I think that pairing would be good. I couldn't really think of any other pairing that those two would fit into better than this. So let's go across the pond. Let's think about the Europe more locked in pairings. I think the easiest pairing of the round, or of the whole tournament, I'm sorry, would be Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy. Tommy and Rory went undefeated as a Ryder Cup pair at Marco Simone, and it's just something that works with them. Like, Tommy has, I believe, the short game for it and the putting skills for it, and Rory can shorten their golf holes significantly. And another kind of locked in pairing I have would be John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton. And they've both kind of come together more recently, especially with their collective move to live golf. And just like Rory and Tommy, they went 2-0 at Marco Simone last year. So those are kind of gimme pairings, and another kind of gimme pairing, but also a question mark for me on the EU side would be Ludwig Oberg and Victor Hovland. And I'm looking at them as kind of the more wild card pairing compared to the rest of the European team. Like Oberg and Hovland remind me of some of these pairings that are more on the American side. They delivered the easiest win at Marco Simone in 2023, and they went 2-0 in general. I can't remember what the score was, but I think it might have been 7-6. Like, they absolutely dismantled, I think, what was Scotty and somebody else. But that's kind of a gimme. I think they'll be paired together, but that's another thing to watch. They're both super young. Hovland wasn't at his best to start the tour season, and Oberg is about of a consistent player as they come, right? But Hovland is more of the wild card for me, more of the question mark in that scenario, especially if they get put into the alternate shot. I would want to keep a close eye on that. And the potential swing pairing that would kind of catch my eye would be Rasmus Højgaard, if they put Højgaard in with anybody. And I think somebody who would be with Højgaard would be just like somebody like Ben Griffin on the American side, or any of these rookies on for USA, just a veteran that can ease his tension and take the banter from the crowd. Because especially when we talk about the European side of things, there's going to be a lot of it, significantly more than the Americans. So, Højgaard to me is kind of the wild card, especially on Sunday. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Højgaard was easily matched up with somebody like Spawn or Griffin on Sunday, and Griffin had a big shot in their match. I'll get into it later, but yeah, those are more or less kind of the pairings that I'm looking at and the pairings that I know will happen. So I want to do Beyond the Card with special helper from Data Golf, datagolf.com. If anybody from datagolf.com is watching, I love your website. Give me like a free subscription or something. But so to start Beyond the Card, let's get into this. I just want to I want to lead with this. Data Golf has US with about a 57% chance to win. And it's mostly for the reasons I've gone over. I feel like this course benefits the US more than it does the Europeans. But I will say, to defend the European side of things, it's extremely rare to be a favorite at an away Ryder Cup. I did not expect the Europeans to be favorites when I looked on Data Golf. I expected the Americans to be projected to win. Did I think it was going to be by 57%? I didn't know. I would have given it 53 or 54, but 57 is in the wheelhouse, I was thinking, and like I said, this is because some of the stuff I mentioned before. The U.S. has the longest hitters in the world. It has arguably the best putter, and somebody I mentioned before, Ben Griffin, really has also, along with Sam Burns, some of the best putting numbers in the world. He has some of the best like tournaments on tour with strokes gained putting in terms of strokes gained putting. So Data Golf gives the largest course advantage to these hitters, with Bryson and Xander getting a quarter of a stroke gained and 15/100ths of a stroke gained respectively, which is the most on the American side. And I looked at Marco Simone in 2023, and Bryson would be getting the most. If we combined those two teams, the 2023 Americans and this year's Americans, Bryson would have the most projected strokes gained. And somebody I talked about before in Rasmus Højgaard. Højgaard is getting projected more strokes gained than Xander. Højgaard is getting almost 2/10 of a stroke gained, which means that this course fit in terms of Rasmus Højgaard is very good. Like, he is a longer hitter than some of the guys on the Europeans, which is why this course, Data Golf has this course tailored to him more than a lot of the other guys. And in terms of narrative stuff on Data Golf, essentially what I'm looking at is, if the Americans can keep the ball in the fairway, which Data Golf thinks they can, they have an easy path to win. And that more or less is why they have a 57% chance to win. Doing otherwise, not putting the ball in the fairway, would give a large advantage to the Europeans, and the Americans would be putting themselves in extremely tricky situations that could be otherwise avoided. And another guy to look at in terms of course fit would be Rory McIlroy. I mentioned Bryson was getting a quarter of a stroke gain. Rory McIlroy is getting over 3/10 of a stroke gain. This course is essentially tailored perfectly to Rory McIlroy. He is the longest hitter in the world. He also is a better putter than Bryson. That's why Bryson's is lower than his. Rory should thrive here. Additionally, Rory has played the most here. I believe is what I saw. Rory has played the most here out of any player on the European team, along with John Rahm. So Rory has the most experience here. Rory is tailored to this golf course the best. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to win on Sunday, regardless of who he's against, even if it's Bryson or Scotty. But I think the Americans have an advantage in is some of their best guys who don't get paired up against Rory. Those are the matches they need to win on Sunday if they want to not tie the Europeans, because they can't tie. If the two teams tie, then the Europeans retain the cup. They need to get a half point better, and that's, I think, is at least a start to a path to get a half point better than the Europeans. But that's pretty much all I've got for Beyond the Card. I mean, I will be excited to see, and I'll be delving into heavily how these guys performed in terms of strokes gained after the Ryder Cup, after Sunday. I'll have a post-Cup show sometime next week, preferably early next week. I think I should be able to get that done. And it'll be tricky because with match play, it's difficult to kind of take strokes gained into account because sometimes you're not completely finishing a hole. So we'll take anything I say next week in the post-Cup show with kind of a grain of salt, a coarse grain of salt. So, but I am excited to delve into the numbers after and see what was the key to either team winning, who overperformed, who underperformed, and I'll make sure to get a good plan for the post-game show, for the post-Cup show on either Monday or Tuesday next week. So that's pretty much all I've got for Beyond the Card. Let's get into a short version of Stroke of the Week. It's more kind of a motivational Stroke of the Week. So, yeah, let's do it.
Well, Reed needs the driver. That's what he's got in his hand. He's having a go at it. He likes it. Good-looking line.
Well, that's a brilliant shot. And he didn't even go that hard. That was just a nice driver.
On the sixth hole, a short
Played
par
with a lot of control, hit within himself.
This shot is just electrifying because it got him back into the match against Rory, and I'm not saying he didn't have a chance beforehand, but it was crucial in the American victory. Something like this is Stroke of the Week because A, it's just a good time here in America.
This is going to be the most
and B, something like this needs to be kept in mind and possibly shown. I know Keegan is hyping everybody up. Bryson had the clips, like, this year's no joke, everything like that. But we need to remember what it's like to just take a calculated risk, right? Take a calculated risk that might end up bad, but also gets the guys juiced up. Like, that really can't be quantified. Like, if it gets the boys riled, like, it's Patrick Reed. This got Patrick Reed the nickname Captain America. It solidified his nickname, right? Like, there's only a couple shots that would have been able to do that. It just can't be understated. Keegan Bradley needs to show, I don't really care if it's this clip, but he needs to show the guys something. It's about having the guts to pull the risky club and execute the risky shot. And that's what's rewarded in a match play tournament of this magnitude. So I really hope that I have something like this to play next week for Stroke of the Week. I definitely will. But yeah, that's my Stroke of the Week for this week. I hope I have something of this magnitude to play for you guys next week, whether it's the Americans or the Europeans. And I have kind of a prompt here that if anybody's watching, I kind of want to know your opinion on who do you think is who do you think's going to hit the shot? Who do you think I'm going to feature in next week's Stroke of the Week? Who do you think is going to have the crazy shot? I'll get into my prediction later, but I'm wondering what you guys think too. So that's pretty much all I have for Stroke of the Week. It's a shorter one. I didn't really have anything to highlight from this past week. I wanted to keep it Ryder Cup affiliated, so that's all I've got. Let's do next on the tee. So next on the tee, preview wrap. I got a couple things I want to talk about still. There's one more point I kind of want to watch for on opening day and throughout the tournament, and it's these rookies, these first-timers who get placed into the fours matches and who line up against people on Sunday, against guys on Sunday who have already played in a Ryder Cup, who have the experience. And I think what's key about that is, actually, I'll just make my prediction now. I do think the USA will win. I think they either win by a couple points or lose by a couple points. I don't think it's close. And it's because the execution from these said rookies is kind of what makes or breaks this team, because Europe doesn't have any other than Rasmus. Europe doesn't have any. But more importantly for Europe, it's the exact same team as it was in 2023. So what makes or breaks it for these Americans is the rookies, and I think they will make it because their first Ryder Cup is at home. It's really that simple. Their first Ryder Cup is on their own American soil, and I also like this group of rookies. Spawn won the U.S. Open this year. Ben Griffin has been consistent this year. He's rose to the top and kind of stayed at the top. He finished second or third, top five, definitely at Procore. I didn't think Ben Griffin would stay at the top. I thought he'd have his tournament or two and then he would crumble. I didn't like some of his underlying numbers with how he played and his strokes gained on some tournaments, but he stayed at the top. So I really don't have any reason not to believe in him, and I say that because I have a premonition, and I got the premonition idea. If you guys ever watched the Talking Yanks pregame show, when they would do like a 30-minute pregame, they would each do a premonition, and I kind of like that. I think I might start doing that. This is my premonition. A USA rookie, I think it's going to be Ben Griffin, but a USA rookie is going to make a putt. That doesn't win the Ryder Cup, but it gives the U.S. a lead that kind of won't be relinquished, and everybody kind of like knows it. You'll see what I mean when it happens, but it'll give the Americans a lead that's kind of too big for the Europeans to overcome. It's a shot that'll be pivotal in the win, and double down on the premonition. Hole 16. It'll be on hole 16. Weirdly accurate premonition, but that's what a premonition is. It's just a stupidly specific prediction. So then I also have another question for you. I'll answer it first. Who is your dream Sunday singles matchup? And I know the right answer is going to be like, obviously Rory against either Scotty or Bryson, but who is other than those three, other than the top two matchups, I guess, who would be your like dream Sunday singles matchup? For me, it would probably be like somebody like Cantlay, if Cantlay plays Fleetwood, or if Cantlay plays somebody. I just want to see Cantlay return to form in a Ryder Cup and get Bethpage absolutely stoked up and take home a Ryder Cup win. So nothing like it. It's the only comparison is probably, like I said before, Olympic golf, but I don't know. It's definitely going to be better than Olympic golf, and I have a great reason for that. It's because I feel like national pride in terms of sports is at an all-time high. Because we saw it with Four Nations Face Off in the NHL. That was just electric. I don't even like hockey, and I watched it. Olympic basketball this past year. The entire team, the best American players in the world played. It was a rarity. I don't know if it's going to keep happening, but it was a rarity, and it was awesome. So I would imagine the patriotism this weekend will be at an all-time high. I don't want to miss a shot, and I'm just overly excited for an event like this. So I do kind of have a plan for this winter. I want to highlight kind of the rise of TGL, if anybody is into that. If you haven't watched TGL, I recommend you look out for some of my videos on it. I'll be posting some soon, probably after the Ryder Cup. So look out for those, and look out for any new videos from Afterthought Sports.